I didn't notice the door at first. That's the part that bothers me most when I think back on it now. The apartment had been mine for 3 weeks before I saw it, which shouldn't have been possible. It was just there one evening, between the kitchen and the bathroom, a door I'd walked past dozens of times without seeing. The apartment itself was nothing special. Third floor of a converted Victorian in a neighborhood that had seen better days. High ceilings, creaky floors, radiators that clanged at odd hours. The kind of place you rent when you're 26 and still figuring things out. The landlord, Mrs. Chen, had been apologetic about the water pressure and the temperamental oven, but she hadn't mentioned anything about a basement. I'd gotten home late from my shift at the bookstore, microwaved some leftovers, and was carrying my plate to the couch when I saw it. A narrow door, painted the same off-white as the walls, with a tarnished brass knob. I stopped mid-step, fork halfway to my mouth, and stared. Had that always been there? I set my plate down and approached it slowly, the way you might approach a dog you're not sure is friendly. The door was maybe 5.5 feet tall, not quite full-sized, and there was something off about its proportions. Too narrow. The frame sat slightly recessed into the wall, as if the building had been constructed around it. I reached for the knob. It was ice cold under my palm, cold enough to make me pull back. I tried again, gripping it firmly, and turned. Locked. I stood there for a long moment, trying to remember the apartment tour Mrs. Chen had given me. She'd shown me everything, hadn't she? The closets, the ancient bathroom with its clawfoot tub, the kitchen with its vintage tiles. But this door? I couldn't recall her mentioning it at all. I knocked. The sound was dull, absorbed too quickly, as if the door were much thicker than it looked. Nothing answered. I pressed my ear against the wood and heard only silence, not even the ambient noise from neighboring apartments. That night, I convinced myself I'd simply overlooked it during the move-in chaos. Boxes everywhere, furniture assembly, the exhausting blur of relocation. It happened. People missed obvious things when they were stressed. But I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that door, the way it had felt under my hand. Around 2 in the morning, I got up and went to look at it again. In the darkness of the apartment, with only the street light filtering through the living room window, the door seemed to recede into the wall, almost invisible. I had to feel along the surface to confirm it was still there. The knob turned freely. I froze, hands still gripping the cold brass. I hadn't heard any click, any mechanism engaging. The knob simply rotated as if it had never been locked at all. Beyond the door I could sense space, empty and waiting. A draft touched my face, carrying a smell like old concrete and standing water. I should have opened it. That's what any rational person would have done, right? Investigated, turned on a light, and solved the mystery. But something in my gut twisted hard, and I stepped back instead, releasing the knob. The door settled back into its frame with the softest whisper of wood on wood. I went back to bed and pulled the covers over my head like a child. The next morning, the door was locked again. I tried it before leaving for work, yanking hard enough to rattle the frame. Solid, immovable. I even checked with Mrs. Chen when I saw her collecting mail in the lobby. Basement access? She frowned, adjusting her thick-framed glasses. No, this building doesn't have basement apartments, just the utility room in the back, and that's accessed from outside. There's a door in my apartment. Sure si está siete. Storage closet, maybe? She tilted her head. You want me to come look? No, it's fine, I said quickly. Something about the idea of her standing in my apartment, not seeing what I saw, felt worse than the mystery itself. I started paying attention to patterns. The door, I realized, had rules. It only appeared when I was home alone. When my friend Marcus came over to watch a game, the wall between the kitchen and bathroom was seamless, unbroken. When coworker Sarah dropped off books I'd left at work, the door didn't exist. But the moment they left, before I'd even locked the apartment door behind them, it would be there again, waiting. And it was never locked during the day. I tested this carefully, methodically. Each morning before work, I'd approach the door and try the knob. Locked. Each evening, after everyone else had gone, I'd try again. Unlocked. The mechanism made no sound, but I could feel the difference in the resistance, the way the knob moved freely in my grip. I still didn't open it. At night, I started hearing things. Subtle sounds that could have been the building settling or pipes expanding, but weren't. Creaking like footsteps on stairs. The sound of breathing that didn't match my own rhythm. And once, just once, I heard something that might have been my name, drawn out into a sigh. Daniel. I sat bolt upright in bed, heart hammering. The apartment was dark except for the blue glow of my alarm clock. 3:17 a.m. I strained to hear it again, but there was only silence and the distant hum of traffic on the main road. I told myself I'd imagined it. Hypnagogic hallucinations, the brain misfiring between sleep and wakefulness. I'd looked it up after the third time it happened. Perfectly normal. Nothing to worry about. But then I started losing time. Small gaps at first. I'd be reading on the couch, turn a page, and suddenly an hour had passed and I was standing in the hallway, facing the door. Or I'd be washing dishes, and the next thing I knew, I was sitting on the floor in front of it, my hand resting on the cold brass. I never remembered opening it, never remembered what I saw, if anything. But my hand would be freezing, and there would be a residue on my palm, something like condensation, but greasier, with a faint chemical smell. Work became difficult. I'd catch myself staring into space, my mind circling back to the door, to the question of what lay beyond it. Sarah noticed me nodding off during my break. You okay? You look like hell. Not sleeping great. New apartment. She gave me a concerned look. Maybe get some melatonin or white noise. I nodded and changed the subject. But the truth was that sleep had become a minefield. I'd wake sometimes to find myself standing at the door, my hand on the knob, my forehead pressed against the wood, as if I were listening to something on the other side. The door was always warm then, almost body temperature, and I could swear I felt a vibration through it, like the purring of some massive sleeping animal. I decided to research the building. If something was wrong, if something had happened here, there would be records. I spent my lunch breaks at the public library, scrolling through digitized newspapers and property records. The building was over 100 years old, built in 1897 by a doctor named Edmund Voss. It had been his family home originally, a grand residence for a man of means. The property record showed it had been subdivided into apartments in the 1960s, passed through several owners, suffered a fire in 1978 that had damaged the second floor. Nothing unusual, nothing that explained the door. But then I found a death notice from 1903. Dr. Edmund Voss had died in his home, cause of death listed as accidental fall. A short article from the same week mentioned that he'd been found at the bottom of his basement stairs, neck broken. The basement had been sealed shortly after his death, according to a building permit I unearthed. His widow had requested it be filled with concrete. I sat back from the microfiche reader, my hands trembling. Sealed, filled with concrete. So where did the door lead? That night, I came home to find the door standing open. Just a few inches, enough to let a wedge of darkness spill into the hallway. I stood in the doorway of my apartment, grocery bags in hand, staring at that impossible gap. The air from the opening was cold, and it carried that smell again, concrete and water and something else, something organic and rotten. I set the groceries down carefully, quietly, as if I might wake something. My phone was in my pocket. I turned on the flashlight, directing the beam at the open door. The light seemed to die just beyond the threshold, swallowed by the darkness there. "Hello?" My voice came out hoarse. No answer, but I heard something shifting in that space beyond the door, a rustling like fabric or dry leaves. I should have left, should have walked back down those 3 flights of stairs and called someone, anyone. But instead, I took a step forward, then another. The beam of my phone light wavered as my hand shook. I reached the door and angled the light down. Stairs, descending into darkness, rough wood covered in a film of something wet and dark. The walls on either side were exposed brick, glistening with moisture. I could see perhaps 10 steps before the light gave up, but I sensed the space continued far beyond that, opening up into something larger. A basement that shouldn't exist. Daniel. My name, spoken from the darkness below. Not a whisper this time, but clear and distinct, in a voice I almost recognized. It sounded like my father, who had died when I was 14. The same slight rasp, the same rhythm. I jerked back from the door, and it slammed shut with a crack that made my teeth rattle. The sound echoed through the apartment, too loud, lasting too long. When silence finally returned, I was on my knees in the hallway, gasping for air, my phone flashlight pointing uselessly at the ceiling. I called Marcus. He came over and spent the night on my couch without asking questions, which I appreciated. The door remained invisible while he was there, just as I'd known it would be. We played video games until 2 a.m., and when I finally crawled into bed, I felt safe for the first time in days. But in the morning, after Marcus left, the door was there again, and it was open. Not just cracked this time, standing wide, the darkness beyond it complete and absolute. I could hear sounds now, echoing up from below. Dripping water, that rustling, closer than before. And breathing, steady and deep, like something huge slowly filling its lungs. "Daniel, come down. We've been waiting." Still my father's voice, but wrong now, too wet, too eager. And that last word, we. I grabbed my keys and ran.
I spent that day at work in a haze. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that open door, that waiting darkness. Sarah asked me twice if I needed to go home sick, and I nearly took her up on it, except home was the last place I wanted to be. When my shift ended, I sat in my car in the parking lot, watching the sun set, dreading the drive back. I called my landlord. "Mrs. Chen, I need to ask you something about the previous tenant." "Oh, you mean Warren? Nice young man. Quiet." "Why did he leave?" "He didn't say exactly. Just gave his notice one day, moved out in a hurry. Left some things behind, actually. I had to dispose of them." "What kind of things?" "Papers, mostly. Notebooks. He'd been writing something, I think. Very messy handwriting, hard to read." Another pause. "Why do you ask?" "No reason. Just curious." "Thank you, Mrs. Chen." I hung up before she could ask more questions. Notebooks. The previous tenant had been documenting something, and then he had fled. I couldn't go back to the apartment. Not yet. I drove to a diner and ordered coffee I didn't drink, my phone on the table in front of me. I pulled up a search engine and typed, "Hearing voices in new apartment." The results were predictable. Carbon monoxide poisoning, sleep deprivation, stress, mental health resources. Nothing about doors that appeared and disappeared. Nothing about basements that called your name. I tried a different search. Edmund Voss sealed basement. This time I found something. A blog post from an amateur historian written 5 years ago about unusual architecture in the city. It mentioned Dr. Voss only in passing, but there was one interesting detail. He'd been interested in spiritualism, like many educated people of his era. He'd conducted seances in his home, attempting to contact the dead. And according to local legend, he had succeeded in opening something he couldn't close again. The blog post had no citations, no sources. It could have been complete fiction, but it gave me a chill that settled deep in my bones. By the time I pulled into my building's parking lot, it was after midnight. The street was empty, windows dark. I sat in my car, engine off, staring up at my third-floor windows. They were dark too. I'd left no lights on. But as I watched, something moved past one of the windows. A shadow, tall and thin, there and gone in an instant. Someone was in my apartment. I should have called the police. Instead, I got out of the car and walked to the building entrance, my keys tight in my fist. The lobby was empty, the elevator humming its way to the 5th floor. I took the stairs, each step careful and deliberate, listening for sounds from above. At my door, I hesitated. The lock showed no signs of tampering. I pressed my ear against the wood and heard nothing. Slowly, I inserted my key and turned it, wincing at each small click of the mechanism. The apartment was dark. I felt along the wall for the light switch, found it, flipped it up. The overhead light flickered on, revealing everything exactly as I'd left it. Couch, TV, coffee table with its scatter of mail. And there, in the hallway, the door. Wide open. "I'm not going down there," I said aloud, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "Whatever you are, I'm not coming down." "You've already been down, Daniel." The voice came from the basement, but it wasn't my father's voice anymore. It was mine, my own voice, slightly delayed, like an echo, but not quite. "That's not possible," I whispered. "You don't remember, But you've been down here every night for a week now, walking, looking, learning, and soon you'll be ready to stay." I backed toward my front door, but my hand found only bare wall. The door was gone. I spun around, disoriented. The entire layout of the apartment had shifted. The windows were in the wrong places. The kitchen was gone. There was only the living room, growing narrower, and the hallway, and the open door with its descending stairs. This isn't real. This isn't real. It's more real than you've ever been. Don't you feel it? How thin you've gotten? How transparent? You're already half here, Daniel. You've been fading for weeks. Soon you'll be all the way through. I looked down at my hands. In the dim light they seemed translucent, the bones visible as shadows beneath the skin. I could see the texture of my shirt through my palm. No, not real. Hallucination, exhaustion. I closed my eyes and pressed my palms against them, hard enough to see stars. When I opened them again, my hands were solid. The apartment was normal. The front door was where it should be, and I ran to it, yanked it open, stumbled into the hallway. Mrs. Chen was standing there, one hand raised as if about to knock. "Oh, Daniel, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to startle you. I was just checking if everything was all right. We've had a complaint about noises from your apartment, talking late at night." I stared at her, trying to process her words through the panic still coursing through me. Noises? Voices? Conversations? The tenant below said it sounds like you're arguing with someone. She peered past me into the apartment. "Is everything okay?" "I'm alone. I've been alone." She gave me a concerned look, the kind reserved for people who might be coming unraveled. "Maybe you've been playing videos too loud, or podcasts." "Maybe," I agreed, because it was easier than trying to explain. After she left, I went back inside and locked the door. The basement door was closed now, but I could see light beneath it, a faint blue glow like nothing I'd turned on. I approached it slowly, every instinct screaming at me to run instead. I placed my hand on the knob. It was warm. "You can't avoid this forever," my voice said from the other side. "I've been waiting so long, Daniel. We all have, every version of you that's ever made it this far. The basement has been here longer than this building, longer than this city. It's always been here, and it's always been calling. You're just the first one to hear it in this particular life. I'm not opening this door. You already have. Every time you sleep, every time you blink, you're always opening it, and you're always walking down, and you're always arriving at the bottom where we wait. This is just the only version where you remember." I yanked my hand back. The light beneath the door intensified, then went out completely. In the sudden darkness, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Coming up. I ran to my bedroom and slammed the door, shoving my dresser against it with strength I didn't know I had. I grabbed my phone and called Marcus. "Hello?" His voice was groggy, confused. "Marcus, I need help. Something's wrong with my apartment. Can you come over, please?" "Dude, it's 2 a.m. Please!" Something in my voice must have convinced him, because he sighed. "Okay, give me 20 minutes. I sat on my bed, phone in hand, watching the bedroom door. The dresser I'd pushed against it looked flimsy now, inadequate. I could hear sounds outside it, in the apartment, movement, the creak of floorboards, and my own voice, humming softly, a tune I didn't recognize but somehow knew all the words to. 20 minutes felt like hours. When I finally heard knocking at my front door, I nearly cried with relief. I shoved the dresser aside and ran through the apartment. The basement door was closed, invisible in the wall, as I'd known it would be. Marcus stood in the hallway, wearing sweatpants and a concerned expression. "You okay, man? You look terrible." "Can I stay at your place tonight?" "Yeah, of course. You want to grab some things first?" I shook my head. "No, I just want to leave." We walked down to the car park together, and I felt the weight lift from my shoulders with each step away from the building. In Marcus's car, heading towards his apartment across town, I almost felt normal again. The streetlights passed overhead in a regular rhythm. The radio played familiar songs. Everything was solid and real and explicable. "You want to talk about it?" "Not really." "Okay." He was a good friend. He didn't push. I stayed on his couch for 3 days. During that time, I called in sick to work and tried to convince myself I'd had some kind of breakdown. Stress-induced psychosis. It happened. People recovered from it. I'd get back on my feet, find a new apartment, start fresh. On the 3rd day, Marcus came out of his bedroom, looking puzzled. "Hey, weird question. You have a brother?" "No. Why?" "Someone who looks just like you was standing outside my door last night. Just standing there looking at the door. I thought it was you at first, but when I opened up to check, no one was there." The blood drained from my face. "What time?" "Like 3 a.m.? I got up to use the bathroom and saw him through the pee hole. Freaked me out." I stood up from the couch. "I need to go." "Go where?" "Anywhere. Away. I can't bring this to you." "Bring what? Daniel, you're scaring me." But I was already gathering my things, what few I had. My phone, my wallet, my keys. Marcus tried to stop me, but I pushed past him and out into the hallway. Behind me, I heard him calling my name, but I didn't look back. I drove with no destination in mind, just putting miles between myself and anything familiar. But as I drove, I started noticing things. A door in the gas station bathroom, too narrow, in the wrong place. A door in the hotel lobby where I stopped to use the Wi-Fi. A door in the convenience store, half hidden behind a rack of chips. Always the same door. Always waiting.
I'm in a different city now. I've been driving for 4 days, sleeping in my car, eating gas station food. My phone is nearly dead, and I haven't charged it because I'm afraid of what I might see if I check my messages or my photos. I'm afraid I'll find pictures I don't remember taking, pictures from inside the basement, pictures of what waits at the bottom of those stairs. This morning, I woke up to find a door in the back seat of my car, just sitting there, propped against the seat, leading nowhere and everywhere. I can see it in the rearview mirror as I write this, sitting in yet another parking lot, trying to figure out what to do next. The voice hasn't stopped. It calls to me constantly now, not just at night. Sometimes it's my father. Sometimes it's my own voice. Sometimes it's voices I've never heard before, all speaking in unison, saying my name like a prayer or a summons. Daniel, Daniel, Daniel. I know I can't run from it. I've known that for a while now. The basement isn't a place. It's a state, a condition, a frequency I've tuned into and can't escape. Every door might lead there. Every threshold is potentially the one. But here's the thing that keeps me driving, the thing that fills me with a terror beyond simple fear. I'm starting to forget what came before. My memories are becoming hazy, uncertain. Did I ever really work at a bookstore? Did Marcus exist, or was he just another voice in my head?
Was there ever a time before the door, or has it always been there, and I am only now noticing? Sometimes I catch myself humming that tune, the one I heard from my own voice in the apartment, and I realize I know all the words. I've always known them. They're a song about going down, about finding home in the deep places, about joining the chorus that waits below. I should fight this, I should find help, but when I look at my hands on the steering wheel, they're thin again, translucent. I can see the wheel through them. And when I look in the rearview mirror, the reflection isn't quite mine. It's smiling. The door in the back seat is open now. I don't remember opening it. Maybe I didn't. Maybe it's always been open, and I'm only now seeing it clearly. I can hear music coming from inside, that song, and voices, so many voices, all singing together. They sound happy. They sound like they've been waiting such a long time for me to come home. My hand is on the key in the ignition. All I have to do is turn off the engine, get out of the driver's seat, and climb into the back. Open the door wider, descend those stairs one final time, and I'll understand everything, won't I? I'll know why the basement calls me. I'll know what I've been running from. Or maybe I already know, and I've just forgotten. The sun is setting now. I can see the door more clearly in the fading light. The brass knob is warm and inviting. And I'm so tired. I've been tired for so long. I think I'm going to go down now. I think I've always been going to go down. This version of me writing this, the version of me still sitting in a car in a parking lot somewhere between where I was and where I'm going, is just the last part to accept it. If you're reading this, if anyone finds this phone or this note, or whatever form this takes, don't try to find me. The address on my license isn't real anymore. The apartment doesn't exist, or it exists too much, in too many places. The basement is everywhere and nowhere, and it's calling to you too now. You just haven't heard it yet, but you will. Everyone does, eventually.